Yeah, no applause during the actual forum, but it's perfectly great now. Our moderator is JJ Jackson, who is the secretary, Jackman, sorry. I'm the secretary of the Highland Park Heritage Trust. And as said before, the questions have all come from the neighborhood councils, but JJ will decide the order. So with that, I'm going to introduce you and let you take it, and I'm going to get to timing duties.
Terrific, thank you very much. Welcome everybody again. Thank you for being here. This is an important time and an important event to be at, so I appreciate your attendance. Hello candidates, how are you? Good evening. I think we'll jump right into it. First question deals public safety. Many CD1 residents, especially younger and immigrant community members, have complicated relationships with the LAPD. Gang activity and street-level crime remain real concerns in parts of Northeast LA, and residents are interested in other approaches to community safety, such as mental health response teams. We'll start with candidate Hernandez. Address what changes you would like to see made to LAPD and why. What alternatives would you propose?
Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hello.
Maybe try that.
Hello,
Hello.
It's green.
hello. Oh, there. I think you.
Maybe give it that one.
Slow battery.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where did you hold the mic? Hello? Hello, hello? Okay, great, thank you. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Eunisses Hernandez. As a council member, I have focused my energy on beefing up the public safety ecosystem. What does that mean? I have been adding more teams so that you can get the appropriate response coming at the right time. I have district-wide peace ambassador teams that work to prevent harm and violence in gang-impacted neighborhoods. They work at Sotomayor High School, at Franklin High School, providing safe passageways for our students to get to home, to school, back home safely. I've invested and I lead the city's unarmed crisis response, prevention, and intervention work and the program. So far, that unarmed crisis response team has answered up to 20,000 calls. 4% have they needed LAPD backup. When they respond, it's $35. When LAPD responds, it's $85. These are clinicians, doctors, social workers, former paramedics that comprise these teams. They're out there responding to mental health, behavioral health calls. And my colleagues just voted to make that program permanent. Now I'm focusing on making it city-wide. Our peace ambassador teams are critical, particularly to the north and the southern portion of our region. They're out there connecting with our young people and not just responding to harm and violence after it happens. They are doing the active work every single day to prevent it from even occurring, especially in our gang-impacted neighborhoods. I will continue to do the work on beefing up the system so that you can call 911 and have the right team respond in an appropriate amount of time. And that's what I focused on my first 3.5 years in office. Thank you. No cheering, no cheering. No cheering.
Okay. Pass the mic back. All right, same question to you, candidate Grande. Address what changes you would like to see made to the LAPD and why, and what alternatives would you propose?
Yeah, sure thing. First of all, I just want to say, good evening, everyone. It's nice to be here. Buenas noches a todos. Buenas noches. Gracias por estar aquí. This is my favorite part, what I do. And now I'll get to the question right now. Now, I've been talking and knocking on doors, personally myself, every single day, several hours, been asking people the questions of what they want to do and what's going on with safety. Two different realities exist, but I'm just not going to subscribe to defunding the police or just let's hardcore go on hard enforcement. I talk to folks, and some people talk about when they're out protesting, and they're sharing that they feel the LAPD is a little heavy-handed with them. And we see it, and that is their reality. We can't take that away from them because they actually experience that. At the same time, I'm speaking with family members, or a woman who works from home, and she says, Nelson, I called the LAPD, I'm watching through my cameras as my livelihood is being stolen from my garage because I work from home. Now, those are completely two different sides. Someone who wants police and someone who doesn't want, who are skeptical. We need to sit in the middle and we need to mend this relationship. We need to have the difficult conversation. There is a world in where both enforcement and accountability exist. Those of you who remember, I'm in my mid-40s, we used to run up to the LAPD officers. They gave us Brandon Dodger baseball cards. That relationship can exist. Let's bring back walking cops who serve the community, who know the community members, who know the shop owners, and that way we can work on actually mending the relationship, because community and police are one, and we deserve to build that relationship again. Thank you, folks.
Great. Same question to Candidate Robledo. Address what changes you would like to see made in the LAPD and why, and what alternatives would you propose?
Before we start, I want to say something. Thank you all for being here. And my mother passed away this morning, so I'm here because I was committed to being here, but I'm going to be a little bit slower today and maybe affected, but I wanted to all let you know so that you know what I'm going through, okay? It's okay, all right.
Can we reset our time?
Thank you,
No,
Sylvia.
yeah, reset the time, yeah. Okay, so I agree and do like the mental health response teams. I think they should be part of the LAPD employees. I think they should be formalized. And I think also all LAPD's officers should be trained in mental health outreach and sensitivity training. I think this is important because it shouldn't be just one or the other. I do like the way the slow officers, I've worked with them, how they handle things. I think all officers should be trained like the slow officers. I do think that we should have more police officers on the streets, on the beat, helping with businesses, being available and visible to community members. I do not like that, I do believe that we should have more police officers. However, I do not like the racial profiling. I do not like abuse of power. I do not like when during protests that they bring out the horses, and they have to differentiate between when something's a riot and there's a peaceful protest. So I do think that there's places where we need to improve, but I do support public safety. I do think we need to support our officers, and I also feel we have to be critical of the overtime. This is as strenuous on our budget, but if we do have more police officers, we wouldn't have as much overtime. So those are some of the details that I want to improve in the LAPD.
Thank you. Candidate Claros, any questions?
Good evening, everyone. It's good to be back in Nella. Thank you to the neighborhood councils for creating this space. As you can see by the turnout, this is so needed. The first thing that I would do is enforce the current laws. We have Proposition 36 that we all voted for, whether you're a Republican, an independent, or a Democrat, that is not fully funded. Nathan Hockman, our new district attorney, who I serve on his advisory board on homelessness, has been fighting the state legislature, our governor. So we got to write to our governor. We need a champion locally that's going to go up to Sacramento and make sure that we get those resources. Why Prop 36? Because it gives us 3 beds. Hospital beds, shelter beds, and jail beds. Yes, we still need jails. So closing down all the jails is not a solution. But we need a balance, which is why we need a new chief of police. Just like we need a new council member here, we need a new chief, and we need a new mayor. We need to clean out this old leadership, and we need new leadership with experience. Something that is going well, especially for the last decade that I've seen, close to 15 years, is gang intervention and prevention work. A lot of the agencies have these relationships. We need to make sure that we stop putting them in compromising positions and empower them to do what their contract says to do, not asking them to do a whole bunch of other things for crumbs. And those of you that are working in these spaces know exactly what I'm talking about.
That's your time. Thank you. And same question to Candidate Grande. Sorry, Calanche.
Hello. Buenas tardes, good evening. Thank you for having us here. It's really important to bring out the community. I've already done this work. I grew up in Ramona Gardens, in a community that was plagued with gangs and no opportunities for kids. I left my job as a professor to come back to my community, build a program, and address the issue of hardcore suppression that was happening in Ramona Gardens. I worked with the community, with the moms. I helped to build their capacity to work to engage the police, to ensure that police were listening to youth, to ensure that the youth were not getting stopped and asked to show their tattoos just because they were walking to the park. So I've done this work. So gang intervention, prevention, working with the community relations, police officers, the senior lead officers are really important. We cannot abolish the police. No matter what anybody tells you, this community and all the communities in Council District 1 say they are not safe. They don't feel safe. They feel less safe than they did 4 years ago. Public safety is really important, and I've done this work. It's really important that we work with the community and GRID and all the programs to ensure that we're talking to law enforcement, and law enforcement is responding to the needs of our community.
Thank you. All right, next question, and we'll mix it up a little bit so we're not in the same order. This is for candidate Robledo. How would you work with neighborhoods that have hot spots with nightly safety issues, such as noise, threats to residents, gang tagging, illegal fireworks, and other illegal behavior, when these are often exacerbated by no working streetlights?
Well, infrastructure is important, preventive care is important. We have to have the street lights, the officers on the beat, on the ground. But in terms of the hotspots, I think it's important that the LAPD provides the variety of different hotspots that are available to the council office, so that I would be able to work and see how can we do prevention care? How can we come and fix what's going on? And what's happening now is a lot of these statistics aren't visible. And I'm very critical of that. The LAPD needs to have these hotspots, needs to let us know what criminal activities are occurring. And we need to do the prevention work, but we need to be on it. So as a council person, I want a weekly report of what's going on in these hotspots. How can we prevent it? How do we need to take care of it? I want to get feedback from the community. You're the ones that are going to tell me what's going on. You know more than I do. You probably know more than the police officers that are going on, because a lot of crime is not reported. So I think the advisory boards aren't usually well intended by the community, but I'm going to establish my own advisory councils with community members to get from them what are their issues of concern. How can we deal with criminal activity? And direct information from the community is important. That's how I'll tackle it.
Terrific, thank you. Same question to candidate Hernandez.
Thank you.
I'm the only council office in City Hall that has a public infrastructure and public safety director that focuses specifically on making sure that we're working with our law enforcement partners, our SLOs, the fire department, LAPD, but that also does the work to fix our infrastructure, invest in the infrastructure that is public safety. Working streetlights is public safety. Removing graffiti is public safety. That's why in the last budget cycle in May, I fought against a $500,000 budget reduction from our graffiti program. Why? Because removing graffiti prevents harm and violence from happening in gang-impacted neighborhoods. I have invested over $500,000 in CD1 discretionary funds in fixing our streetlights, reinforcing our streetlights, and solarizing over 90 streetlights so that we don't have to keep doing this whack-a-mole of replacing the copper wire, having it get stolen, and then do it again. I'm doing the work to break the cycle of expecting different results after doing the same thing over and over again. So public safety is important. Working with my communities to hear what are the crises that they have, bring in the appropriate stakeholders. We had a garage out there by Vista Hermosa that was problematic, where it was having parties, they were being a nuisance, they were loud music. We brought in our city partners, our SLOs, to address the nuisance issue there. And for me, it's case by case. There might be a scenario where there's a party happening. We don't need someone armed responding to that party for the loud music. Do I think that's something that we can have one of our alternate teams respond to? I think we can build up to that. But for me, public safety is being able to address the crises, but also building up the infrastructure to make our city safe. Thank you.
Terrific, thank you. Same question to candidate Claros.
Hotspots. If you're in Lincoln Heights, you know about the ones on Pasadena Avenue, right by where the old Goldwell was, where the Smart and Final is at. We're struggling to preserve the 5 parking lots in Lincoln Heights for the tienditas. Our businesses are already struggling. People are moving out of Lincoln Heights. Highland Park, Marmion Way, the 110 freeway. If you notice, nothing's happened the last 3 or 4 years until the last 2 or 3 weeks because it's campaign time. Cypress Park, look at RV Central outside of Cypress Rec Center. It reminds me of where I'm from, Westlake, Pico Union. Just look at MacArthur Park and the debacle that's cost us $30 million there, right? Look at the El Salvador corridor that has just been abandoned right after we have put so many initiatives there. So these hotspots, we know them well. Those of us that live and work here and are raising our families here know them well. So we're done with the gaslighting. You know the current option if you want to double down, or you've got about 4 other options here before you. I feel that I bring the experience that's needed and the new leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Please hold applause. Question again now to candidate Calanche.
If you want to talk about hotspots, the biggest hotspot is MacArthur Park. And that we're not addressing. Kids cannot walk to school without having to be exposed to drugs, open air, doing drugs like right in front of kids. That is a huge civil rights issue for kids, immigrant kids that are moving to this country for a better life, and they have to deal with that issue in their community. So that needs to be addressed. Now, if you want to talk about infrastructure, there's easy ways to make the lights work. Well, we need to punish people that steal the copper wire because we're paying for it and people are plugging into that. But another quick alternative would be to add the Cobra headlights to the existing utility poles. That's a really easy way to get our streets back lit, and you can't steal the copper wire. So we don't have to invest $500,000 to get new lights. You can just add those Cobra heads and work with the LEDWP on that issue and get the lights back on. So hotspots are all relative. But I would say if you want, for LAPD, I think one of the things that I was working on the police commission is bringing 100 clinicians as reserve, like we have reserve officers, we can also have a reserve team of clinicians. I've talked to many clinicians that are in private practice that are willing to do a couple of shifts a month, and that's something that I will work on as a council member.
Thank you. And Grande.
It's really easy to say, we're gonna put more police, we're gonna enforce more, we're gonna do that. But it's like the fire department showing up to put out the same fire over and over again. We don't find the root cause of it. Why are these crimes being committed? Is it lack of economic opportunity? Is it lack of education? Is it lack of after-school programming? That's generally what it is. Yes, of course, we're gonna put more police presence. Yes, of course. But when people resort to crime, it's because there's a need. I inherently believe that we all choose to do good. So we have to do things, but first, look, it's a given, we're gonna put more police officers, we're gonna create more youth programs, but we have to support the communities and the small businesses. We have to put pride back in. When you have pride in a community, the community watches out for itself. We create economic development, we create local jobs, we support our small businesses, we hire locally, we create programs, and the people that are in trouble, the youth in trouble, we treat them with dignity. We don't slap them on the hand and say, you did bad. We said, listen, we make mistakes, but we have to have rehabilitation programs for people that go through this. Listen, I grew up here in Highland Park in the 50s, now in 56. Yeah, I look good for my age. No, on 56, in the 80s, we all know, I know some of the great guys here, I was talking to you. You guys know what was going on here in the 80s and 90s. It was hot here. So it's a lot of, yes, police presence, but we need to do preventative. So we break the cycle and not just patch fix this, but we have to invest in our communities, our small businesses, bring pride back, and bring education to our communities.
Thank you. Okay, switching gears a little bit. One of the most controversial developments happening in CD1 is the LA Gondola that starts from Placita Olvera Street to the LA Historic Park to the Dodgers Stadium. Let's start with candidate Claros. What is your stance on the gondola? What do you think the impact of the gondola is? And could you name 3 actions that support your stance?
Yeah, I've said that I support the public process. I'm gonna inherit whatever I get, whether it's the gondola. So I think I was the only one that said that I would support the public process. And the reason I say that is because I live in Chinatown. I also have a business in Chinatown, and I've met with the businesses in Chinatown that are dying, right? The nightlife is already dead. If you remember just 10 years ago, Chinatown was part of the downtown renaissance. You just take a moment and think about 10 years ago. We're in 2016 and things are booming in downtown LA. Chinatown is a vibe, and it goes all the way up to Lincoln Heights into El Sereno when we're talking about Broadway. So they were trying to bring back Broadway. I'm trying to build Broadway back up. It's been a disaster with the different types of leaders that we've inherited over the last 5 to 6 years. And I get it, the leadership that we had before was very controversial and it didn't work. Trust me, I know. Down in the southern portion of the district, we've been abandoned by 3 administrations in a row now. Just look at Pico Union and look at Westlake. So we had a lot of hope with the new council member, but it failed. And that's why I was the first one to file. That's why I'm the one that's been here, and I will continue to be here for every of the 22 neighborhoods in CD1. Your voice is my priority in every 22 neighborhoods in CD1.
Same question, candidate Calanche.
Back in December at our 3rd candidate debate, I said I was against it, so I'm still against it. But it's not a priority that I'm focused on because it's a project that may or may not happen. I'm focused on, MacArthur Park and the lighting and all those issues. But I already stated that I was against it.
Same question, candidate Hernandez.
Thank you. From the moment that I knocked doors the first time I ran, Lincoln Heights, Solano Canyon, and Chinatown said that they were vehemently opposed to this project because it would take green space from them, it would impact their privacy. This is an unsolicited project from a billionaire that wants to take public land to put a gondola up so that he can check off a box to develop the Dodger Stadium parking lots. That's what these communities are on the receiving end of. So at every single moment, I have been standing against the gondola. And it's one thing to say, I'll let the public process play out. Whatever happens, happens. Absolutely not. As someone who represents this district, you have to be active in the fight against the gondola. I've been active at the state level. I've been active at the city level. I literally have a resolution that has been approved by all my colleagues saying that the city of Los Angeles is against the gondola. There's no passiveness here. You need to fight. And that's what I've been doing as a council member, is fighting for our most vulnerable communities, the communities that have not been heard, the communities that have been sold out. Lincoln Heights, Chinatown, Solano Canyon have been on that edge of being sold out. I will not allow a billionaire to come take public land and the privacy and the green spaces from our communities. Never.
Same question, candidate Grande.
Being from Highland Park, when I heard about the gondola, I was like, damn, that sounds like fun. And I was like, that's gonna be really cool, I like it. But then I started canvassing, I started talking to neighbors. And I started realizing that the people that it affected most don't want it. So the duty of the council member is not to do what you choose to do or what you want to do. It's to do what the people want. And ultimately, that's what I've been doing. I've been listening. And I tell people this, I said, listen, I have my vision for the district, but it's going to be shaped based off the needs because the job is to be a representative. Now, back to the gondola. We haven't fully even explored the Dodger Express. There is still a lot more we can do with bringing buses up there. There are a lot of different ways we can do. Listen, I know it's an invasion of privacy. It's going to be encroaching on people's land. Listen, I don't know if I'd want something flying over my house. So I'm going to go ahead and take the neighborhood's word for it. So I really want to share this that expresses the thing is that regardless of the vision that I have, if the community asks for something else, as your representative, it would be my duty to do exactly that and represent you and be your voice. So thank you, folks.
I also oppose the gondola. I don't like that it's a subsidy for someone that's really wealthy. I never understood why we don't bring buses from all different parts of the LA County into Dodger Stadium. I've taken that bus, and going into Dodger Stadium is great, but leaving is terrible if they're just from Union Station. So it could be an organized effort to have different modes of transportation coming in. I also think it's going to affect all of LA County. I would do community outreach and telecom means outside of Solano Canyon, outside of Chinatown, because as I've been talking to people in Mount Washington, Montecito Heights, Highland Park, I haven't found one person that supports the gondola. So people are really against it. So we really need to organize other communities, get them to contact policymakers in Sacramento and the policymakers here in the city of LA and the MTA. I'm actually surprised that the councilwoman doesn't get as much support on the MTA board, considering that the mayor's on there. She has city representatives and also Hilda Solis and some of the other supervisors. So those people have to be more responsible. We need to also put the pressure on them to not support this, and we need to get community support outside from those areas that are affected, because we're all affected, and let's have some effective solutions for transportation to get people to Dodger Stadium.
That's your time. Thank you. All right. Since June of 2025, the city of LA has been hit with ICE raids and abductions, including many not far from this venue. This is we'll start with candidate Grande. Can you confirm that you will uphold our status as a sanctuary city, and can you specify what that entails? Will you commit to protect families from abductions and arrests, and protect protesters against ICE?
Absolutely. Now, folks, I don't know if you've heard in the news lately, but there's been a community-led effort with alert sirens to let people know that ICE is in the neighborhood that's been spreading through Highland Park. Has anyone heard of that? Yeah. All right, folks. Now that's an initiative I'm leading. Because when you have an administration that says that an entire population are murderers and everything else, I'm sorry, I take that personal. I look around here. I look at my parents, hardworking immigrants, a lot of our parents up here who've come in for chasing the American dream. Now, there's already a legal framework. There's already a legal framework in place. Now, we have rising cases with landlords threatening to call ICE to remove folks from their apartments so they can get higher rent. We have employers that are getting people to get the job done and say, I'm gonna call ICE so I don't have to pay you. I will make sure day one, I introduce motions to make sure that we take care of those people and we come with real consequences for anyone that tries to threaten any of our community members, regardless of immigration status. Because this ICE thing, it's a federal monster, but we can start cutting its legs off by people that are getting emboldened and using it against our neighbors, because I don't care if it's your first day here or if you were born here. You are a community member, and I will stand firmly on this ground to protect you, and you can take my word on that.
Same question, candidate Calanche.
Yes, I will enforce being a sanctuary city. I will make sure that LAPD does not collaborate with ICE. I will make sure that no one can wear a mask. Law enforcement agents, LAPD cannot wear a mask, but no federal law enforcement agency can wear a mask. I will make sure that every time LAPD has to respond to a call that involves ICE, that it gets documented and get reported to the police commission, to council, to the mayor, whoever needs to know. But the idea is that we do not collaborate at all with ICE, and that we protect protesters from ICE, and that we ensure that there's safe spaces where ICE cannot come into these city facilities, or that any city employee would collaborate or do anything that involves ICE. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Claros, same question.
Yes, we're going to continue to enforce sanctuary city because it's state law, right? So Mayor Garcetti just picked up what he did from the state. The council member codified it, but unfortunately it hasn't been enough. You know why? Because we need a new chief. We need a new chief that's gonna uphold our laws that's gonna do our jobs, that's gonna do what the taxpayers that pay their salaries are gonna do. The safe zones, I called for safe zones last year in July of 2025. It took the county to do it this year, and then eventually the city did that. Chasing ICE out of LA is something that I've done, whether it's been on my own during my walks around Elysian Park, because that's my regular 4-mile walk process. But also as part of a rapid response, we started the CD1 Coalition Mutual Aid Network in 2022. Has 14 out of the 22 neighborhoods represented in that mutual aid network. You know why? Because we knew that we were alone, without representation after the first year of this new administration. $1 million that we forced the Dodgers to donate to the city of Los Angeles, we still have not seen the impact. It's not enough. While my daughter, myself, Daniel Sosa that's here, and so many other people protested these Dodgers, demanded that we do better, and that they do better for us,
5 seconds.
the council member paraded with them, celebrated with them. Done with the Dodgers, done with ICE.
Same question.
It's unacceptable, immoral, and even illegal what these ICE raids are doing. We have a sanctuary city. We have made this very clear that this is an important part of being from Los Angeles. I feel that the LAPD has the right to arrest any federal agent that is committing a crime of kidnapping or violence against our community. It is not acceptable. We have to enforce that law if it's possible. We have to make sure that LAPD does not cooperate with ICE. And I do not like, as I mentioned before, we have to make a distinction between someone that is rioting and someone that is a peaceful protest. There is no reason to bring out those horses when we're having a peaceful protest. There is no reason for violence. There is a way to diffuse these protests. We've seen them. I participated in every single one here in Highland Park. People are peaceful. I do not see that anybody gets out of hand. So I just think it's unacceptable that people are being imposed upon, people are being arrested, and there's no violence. So we have to put LAPD in check, and we have to make sure that we arrest any federal officer that is committing a crime against individuals.
Candidate Hernandez.
I didn't wait for Trump to get sworn in to take action around what the federal government was gonna be doing. I was an organizer the first time he was president. I saw what he did to my communities. I saw the impact, the tearing apart families, the children in cages. I knew what to expect. That's why I led and co-authored LA City's sanctuary ordinance, because the city was not even a sanctuary city. Making those policies and cementing them so that we wouldn't use staff time, resources, facilities to enable federal immigration enforcement. And when LAPD has done overuse of force, shooting protesters, shooting people using the First Amendment rights, I've submitted almost 24 pieces of legislation to get them to enforce the laws that people here are talking about, putting motion forward for them to identify federal agents, putting motions forward to direct how to make sure that they're not intervening and enabling federal immigration enforcement. I don't have to wait. You don't have to wait to find out what I'm gonna do. I've been doing it. I've invested CD1 discretionary funds in rental assistance when families have been too scared to go to work. $500,000 in food access to a food desert district, making sure that we get 4,000 bags of food to our community members every single day. And in the last budget cycle, when I day labor centers and Represent LA, a program that provides legal services to immigrants in deportation proceedings, when both of those programs were defunded last year in the budget, I was the champion that fought to make sure we put $1 million back into our day labor centers and $1 million back into Represent LA. And as we've seen what the federal government has been doing, one of the #1 targets in this district have been our day labor centers. Every day I'll fight for our communities.
Next question, we'll start with candidate Calanche. The current LA City budget for the 25-26 fiscal year is $14 billion with a $1 billion reported shortfall. What are your top LA City budget priorities, and what would you cut if necessary?
Thank you. So let me start with the need to increase revenue. We can't just believe that we're gonna get more money just because. We need to increase development, which we have not seen any in Council District 1, except for when I was in Solano Canyon last week, they told me that they're more than against the gondola, they're more against the Buena Vista project, which is already kind of in the works, which is a huge development that's gonna, basically cover the view for their community. But at least it's subdevelopment, right? So we need more development, we need business, we need small businesses, because that is the bread and butter, that's what's gonna bring in revenue. We have created the conditions for businesses to close. We've created the conditions in the city for development to leave our city. Where do we think the money's gonna come from? Taxes, more taxes? No, we have to create communities that are safe, clean, businesses are thriving in order to increase the revenue. Now, once we increase the revenue, I will prioritize youth services. Our parks need to be activated, full of youth programs, because that's gonna prevent gangs, that's gonna prevent kids from going down the wrong path. So prioritize youth services, prioritize low-income housing, and prioritize public safety.
Thank you. Same question, Grande, Robledo.
My priorities are sanitation. We have to have our streets clean. All of us are sick and tired of seeing the trash and the encampments on the streets. Our kids deserve to be able to walk to the park and be able to walk to school and walk wherever they need to. So that is a priority for me. I also want to get rid of the Los Angeles Homeless Authority. I think that they're wasting taxpayer money. I think they're irresponsible, and it's not transparent. I think we have to take care of funding for mental health and for drug addiction and for alcohol addiction. So we do have to be realistic in what our resources, and also provide any kind of short-term funding for people that are having any kind of economic distress and they can't pay their rent. I also am a strong believer in supporting open space and parks. I grew up with 6 brothers and sisters. The parks were a very important part of my upbringing. The parks are a way for our families to go if they can't afford other ways. And every family, no matter what economic background, deserves to go to a park without encampments and a bathroom that is safe and clean. I also believe in supporting the infrastructure of the fire department. I do not want to happen in any other part of the city with a fire, and that could happen especially in CD1. We have a lot of hillsides. I'm in a fire zone, and MacArthur Park is very densely populated. So I do support fire safety and prevention.
Candidate Grande, same question.
We only talk about saving money. Why not making more money? We are the second largest city in the entire country. We have all the potential here. We have all the talent here. I have an entire initiative called CD1 Open for Business. Listen, I'm the entrepreneur here, I'm the small business owner up here. I've created thousands of jobs and opportunities in the last decade. I've created over 400 projects, community impact driven. I know the economics of how to make money working with very little. And I proudly say it. I created all that, generated millions of dollars off a company that was running on only $250,000 a year, because I know how to run a lean, effective machine. Now, on top of that, besides supporting our small businesses to generate more money, we have to talk about saving Hollywood. Listen, that's an entire industry. It's not just actors and producers and directors. It's people who are wardrobe, catering, security, members of our community here. You guys see the credits at the end of a movie? You see all those names? Those are all local community members here. Now, I'm gonna create the CD1 Open for Production where we do zero fee permitting. I'm already talking with Stay in LA group to make sure we keep production here because it's an entire industry. Now, what we're gonna focus on also is we need more development. We need to welcome that money, okay? We need all types of development. We need affordable housing, we need market rate, and we need it all, okay? Then on top of that, we need to clean our streets. Now, we're not gonna change the landscape. When we develop, we're not gonna change the landscape of things, but we need to make sure our streets are clean so we can welcome all this new business. Thank you.
budget is my favorite part of the work that I get to do. In this very room, we have held several Budget 101 trainings. Why? Because I want my constituents to know where your tax dollars are going to. I sit on the Budget and Finance Committee. That $1 billion deficit you talked about, that was last year in May. I was one of the leaders to close that $1 billion deficit, and we didn't fire a single person that works for the city, meaning that your city services were not further delayed, because we were on the precipice of going from a year to fix the street light to 2 to 3 years, and I prevented that from happening in the city budget. My priorities in this next budget cycle, number one, making sure that we deliver on the city services that you all pay a lot of tax dollars for, making sure we fix our street lights. We are on the precipice of getting that done within a week. Bringing down our tree trimming cycles. Right now, it takes us 15 years to trim a tree when industry standards are 5 to 7 years. I'm doing the work to bring us down to that level. I want to make sure that you feel your tax dollars in your community. Number two, making sure that we invest in expanding our unarmed crisis response system. Now that this program is permanent, let's scale it up so that more of the city, until the whole city, is covered by this program. And number three, investing in our immigrant communities, making sure that we are not defunding our day labor centers, making sure that we're not defunding Represent LA. And also, I led the work in our Animal Services Department to increase the amount of our vouchers for spay and neuter. Now I'm going to take on the fight to increase that number of vouchers so that more people have access to the appropriate level of vouchers. These are the fights I'm going to take on in this next budget cycle in May. April 20th, the budget is released by the mayor. Tap in.
Candidate Claros, same question.
We're definitely gonna reinvest into our fire stations. Every fire station that I visited, they're so bad, they're such in bad shape that they're having to fight for a sales tax. But let me tell you that one thing that I'm gonna cut is taxing you, the people, whether it's your trash, whether it's just tax after tax after tax off of failed leadership. I don't know how we have an incumbent that's boasting about being on the budget finance when we're just taxing and passing the buck onto our voters. We got to keep our legacy businesses here. Papa Cristo's gone. We're trying to keep Langers in here. The Pacific Dining Cart is gone. Our legacy businesses are closing up in each of our 22 neighborhoods. We need audits, which is why we need a new controller, because we need a controller that's going to audit not just their enemies, but all of the council members. We need to overhaul LADWP. DWP is not regulated. We need a complete overhaul of DWP that's going to save us bills everywhere. We need to redirect our discretionary funds from cracked pipes and needles to rental assistance and food assistance for our seniors. We need to open up our schools on the weekends so that we can have green spaces for all our kids, because right now our parks need some time to reset, rebuild, and recover because they're in crisis due to the current leadership. Thank you.
All right, continuing with the budget question, this one will start with candidate Grande. Every council office has discretionary funds derived by various sources such as incoming developments, building fees, etc. How would you use your discretionary funds, and how will you prioritize the discretionary budget?
On things we can see immediately. People are asking for cleanups. We need to clean up. People are waiting for 6 months. People are waiting years for things to happen. We need to go ahead and get our streets clean. I think we need to reinvest in our youth immediately. What's going on is we have to break, I'm really big on, we have to break the cycle of having our kids fall into trouble, falling into gang programs, things. You know, the GRID program, I see you guys here. You guys are doing good work. You're guiding our youth in the right direction. Now, we also have to reinvest, I think, immediately into our local small businesses. Like we were just saying right now, I'm going to small businesses and they have no idea. What's happening is that we have systems right now, like if everyone's trying to open a bakery in the 90s, we have to keep up with the new modern consumer. People are cashless. We have a lot of legacy businesses that don't know how to talk and reach the new consumers. We have a lot of solopreneurs, people that are work from home, digital creators, who aren't being treated like real businesses. I keep going back to this because what's happening is that we have to generate more money to help us, because when we generate more money, we create more local jobs, we drive less, the quality of life improves, we fix our streetlights, we fix our parks, and folks, we have to stop worrying about cutting the budget. So my immediate fix is to support local small businesses, to support in our youth, and to clean up our streets. So thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Calanche, same question.
Thank you. my first year is gonna focus on trash pickup. There's no reason that streets, and if you don't believe me, go see for yourself. There's parts of Council District 1 where the trash is up to your waist. No child should live in those communities with those conditions. So I will do what it takes to clean those communities, to invest all the money that I can to ensure that people feel good about raising their families in a clean community. That's the least we can do for people that are struggling, right? And I'm sure that we would love to have our community clean as well, but there's parts of this district where it's unconscionable. I will also focus on lighting. And as I mentioned, I would do those Cobra heads so we can immediately fix the lighting. There's no reason that North Spring should have 100 lights that don't work. Drive down North Spring, 100 lights that don't work. Where is our tax dollar going? And thirdly, I will invest in the first year in working with the nonprofit animal rescues, because we are killing animals at our shelters. We really are. We say we're no kill, we really do kill. So we need to partner. We don't have the capacity to support all the animals that get abandoned and dropped off. So we need to partner with those organizations that are willing to work with the city.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Claros, same question.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. Every council office has discretionary funds. How would you use your discretionary funds, and how will you prioritize the discretionary budget?
Well, the first thing, like I mentioned before, we're gonna take it away from more needles and more pipes. We need to get to solutions. What we need to be able to do, it's okay to clap. What we need to be able to do is create an emergency fund. We are constantly in a crisis in CD1, whether it's rental assistance or whether it's food assistance that we need to be able to catch our most vulnerable. We also need to be able to create public-private partnerships. People are scared to come and invest, to develop, to create, because they're unsure about their safety, but also which way the council member is gonna go in her leadership when it comes to these businesses. Don't take my word for it. Go down all of the corridors and speak to these individual businesses. The reason why these chambers and these associations are not endorsing is because they're nonprofits. But these individual businesses, just like Nelson said, are hurting. We're out there talking to these people, all of us. We're not here to gaslight you and grandstand. We're here reporting the news. Night markets, that's what we have to do for our street vendors. We have to create night markets. Just like we have in Chinatown, we have to do that on the El Salvador corridor and Westlake up here in Highland Park. And that goes through private-public partnership. The vendors have to be able to invest in themselves. The city's got to meet them halfway, and we need to create a pipeline so that they can go into brick and mortars and eventually franchise. We need safe and clean streets for all in Los Angeles.
As I said before, I think the infrastructure is very important. We deserve safe and clean streets. Communities need to be able to walk to and from school and also around the neighborhood. I also believe in the importance of street lighting, to also have safe parking lots, to have clean parks, walkable communities, and support our business corridors. But most importantly, things evolve and things change. I want to form advisory committees from the different communities and have you tell me what you need. I want to listen to all of you, the voters. You let me know what's going on. You let me know what are your concerns. I believe in policy and decision-making and money spending from the ground up. I want to listen to the neighborhood councils. I want to listen to the PTAs. I want to listen to all of you, and you let me know what's going on in your block, what's going on in your neighborhood. When I was a deputy, I would drive every week to the different communities, the ones that I had, and find out what's going on. I would have a community member let me know what are their concerns, what's going on, where do we need to spend money. So I want to hear from all of you, what are the priorities, and start from there.
Candidate Hernandez.
Thank you. So when it comes to using your tax dollars, you want to make sure that the people who are stewards of those dollars have been responsible with their own dollars and responsible with the money that they have been given by other people. So that's important to know. When it comes to CD1 discretionary funds, people talk about small businesses at this space. I've invested $400,000 in a small business resiliency grant to support small businesses that have been impacted by the raids, by the fire, by the tariffs, so that they can, one, stay and support in this city, because small business, legacy businesses are important to the budget, but also in CD1, we have the highest number of legacy businesses in this district and the largest number of small businesses that generate $100,000 or less every year. These are our micro entrepreneurs that we need to support. I've also invested in $200,000 in unarmed security for our Chinatown small businesses because that's what they asked for and wanted to see. I've invested $1 million in street cleaning teams. We have 7 street cleaning teams for this district, but be advised, we represent 22 neighborhoods and 248,000 people. We're adding more teams. The city said no more money for street teams, so what did I do? I applied for 2 grants from the state and acquired 2 grants from the state to add 2 new street cleaning teams for this district, so we will be up to 9. I've invested in scholarships for young people through Saleh. I've invested $400,000 in food assistance, giving 4,000 bags of food every single day. I've invested $500,000 in rental assistance to prevent our families from falling into the eviction to homelessness pipeline. I've invested in tree trimming. I've invested in $70,000 in Fire Station 11 that serves MacArthur Park. I've invested in fire preparedness, emergency preparedness, and sanitation overtime to make sure our neighborhoods are cleaner and safer.
Thank you. We're going to move to homelessness, and we'll start with candidate Robledo. Our district is currently confronted with a high count of unhoused neighbors. What do you think is the main cause of homelessness in the district, and how will you prevent homelessness and address the current crises of unhoused constituents?
Well, I've touched upon it a little bit. I do want to get rid of the Los Angeles Homeless Authority, because that way, if we start our own agency or partner with the county, how the money is spent is transparent. I'm getting sick and tired of hearing, we spent $50 million to house 50 people. And I think, wow, they could give a house to the amount of money that's being spent. It's very irresponsible, it's not efficient, and I do believe that if we have our own agency, it's transparent. But I do believe in supporting resources for drug abuse, for mental health, and for alcohol addiction. And as I said before, we do have to provide funding. There's a study up north, and USC did a study that when people are in an economic crisis, that providing money for them helps. I'm a landlord, and when I have my tenants lose their job, or a partner, they break up with a partner, I work with them on a payment plan. I figure, okay, you can pay me every 2 weeks. You can pay me later when you get a job. But not everybody has that kind of support system. So let's figure out a way to help people with the short-term financial help, because we know that once somebody becomes homeless, it's so much more difficult to be able to get back on your feet. So I do believe in redoing that whole homeless authority. It'll really make a difference. So thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Hernandez.
Thank you. Thank you. As a council member, when it comes to the homelessness crisis, I've done a few things. Number 1 is focus on preventing people from falling into the eviction to homelessness pipeline with our rental assistance, with our tenant outreach teams. The second piece is building the beds, acquiring the beds, and filling the beds to get people off the street that are experiencing homelessness. When the city told me no, Councilmember Hernandez, we don't have money to build more interim housing beds, what did I do? I went to the state and I applied to a grant. They gave me a grant to build 65 new beds across the street from Home Depot, adding on the 90 beds that we already built. This is the first of its kind interim housing site with wraparound mental health services, drug treatment services, behavioral health service, dental, eye care, because it does require a holistic approach to making sure we can get people into interim housing, keep them into interim housing till they get into permanent housing. I've also applied for a grant at the state to acquire new beds. We acquired 70 housing slots to house the people living along the 110 freeway and along the riverbed. We have housed 59 people out of those 70 slots. All of them are housed. 1 person is on their way to permanent housing. And this is not a few months of housing. The grant we received here is to help support them for several years into housing so that they can get into permanent housing and remain housed. That is how we deal with the homelessness crisis, is getting people experiencing homelessness, the mental health services they need, the drug treatment they need, the beds that they need to get off of the streets. And when we've seen encampments over there by the fire station, what did I do? I worked with the mayor, my colleagues, to house all those people, because that's how you deal with the crisis. Sweeping them from one side to another doesn't work. Giving them tickets doesn't get them housed. We have to build the beds and fill up the beds.
Everyone, let's give it up for the councilwoman one more time. Please, let's give it up. No, seriously. She has done all of that the last 3 to 4 weeks. It's been amazing. Great job, councilwoman. Okay. With that being said, prevention is the secret sauce. We need to be able to, I'll wait. We need to be able to address harm reduction, not at our parks. We need to be doing it inside of facilities. After 3, maybe 4 years, finally, through to the previous administration, going into this one, we might have a chance with St. Vincent Medical Center. Those folks have been scared to purchase that because, again, of the lack of leadership. We need to enforce 4118 the right way, not just as a knee-jerk reaction to move the thing across the street and everybody across the street while it gets cleaned up like a service, and then it comes right back. Ask the people around Lacey Park, right? We need to make sure that we get the funding for the beds through Prop 36. We need to triage it the Red Cross way. And those 90 beds, I think Cedillo, who I never agreed with on things, built them. So to take credit for other people's work has to stop already. We need to fact check these beds. We need to see where the wasteful spending is happening. Homelessness went up 20% in our district when the city claimed that it went down 3% in our district. The 110 freeway just got cleaned up recently because of the work that we did on Avenue 44 and 45. Thank you.
Thank you. $2 billion for the situation that we currently live in. We're not addressing the issue. I don't care what anybody says, we're not addressing the issue. And part of the problem is that every city around LA does not allow people to camp on the street. So guess what? LA is solving the problem for the whole county. We don't have the resources, we don't have the money to address the issue for the whole county. So we have to change something. We cannot continue building 20, 50, 60 beds at a time. We're never gonna get out of this situation. So if I had $2 billion, I would spend 15% on prevention to ensure that young people are not ending up on the street, 15% for interim housing because I know that works, 10% of the $2 billion for workforce and case management that is needed, 30% for mental health and drug addiction treatment because that is the root cause of this issue. The people that are living on the street, they're not our neighbors. They're people that are just living on the street because they cannot survive in this society because they're addicted to drugs. So they go to communities where it is allowed. I will make sure that we clean up our parks because kids should be able to use their parks.
Thank you. So, I don't know if you guys know, I don't have an attack strategy here. I'd rather bring solutions. Thank you. I think that's what we're all looking for, right? First of all, folks, we see what's going on. Every business owner, every person. I'm talking to the señoras around the corner, they're like, mijo, I can't walk to the park anymore. The homeless guys can attack me. I feel bad for him. We have to get to the root the issue here. Now, from pandemic levels, we are up 20% in homelessness right now. Now, the thing is, everyone uses the homeless folks and the unhoused, as political pawns. I have taken unhoused community members, because they are community members. I've taken them to lunch. I've gone and taken them to water. I go and I speak with them, because they deserve dignity, and leaving them on the streets is not dignified. Those are somebody's kids, those are somebody's parents out there. Now what we need to do is we need to adjust the way we care for them. Now, when we care for them, a lot of times we tell them, you can't bring your pets. We're gonna partner with animal welfare groups, bring your pet. I'll live on the street with my pet. Now, if we're gonna say, if you have a romantic partner, you can bring your romantic partner. Let's treat real life skills. Let's not provide needles and pipes. Let's give you workforce development. Let's offset the work price and let's start teams with those that are mentally sound enough and go do community cleanups. Put some dignity back in their hearts because you know, if you're not working for like a month or two, it gets to you. We gotta treat these folks with dignity, give them enjoyment of life because they deserve to live just as much as we do, and that's how we're gonna treat them.
Next question, we'll start with candidate Claros. With the passage of state-level housing reform SB 79, increased housing developments is coming to Northeast LA. How would you provide transparency with our communities about proposed developments? How will you assure that new housing is affordable for the most vulnerable residents in Lincoln Heights, Glassell Park, Sycamore Grove, Cypress Park, and Highland Park?
Well, we definitely need to do some policy advocacy. That's why we created California Rising in 2016. We've been around for 10 years. The CD1 Coalition Mutual Aid Network has been around since 2022. Because right now, when we build any kind of affordable housing, transitional housing, it's an open free-for-all. So we can build it in our own backyards, but our own folks that are living in our backyards, in our front yards, on our streets are not getting access to that. You look at the Mayfair, for example, around MacArthur Park, it's just attracted, you know, and made it known as now Skid Row West. And so what we have to be able to do is really bring in private-public partnerships so that we can have the money that we're currently not gonna have. If we're looking at the budget seriously, we're going down a rabbit hole that we're not gonna really get out of, at least for the next handful of years. The city is broke, so mark my words, if one of us four don't get up here, you're gonna continue to be taxed by this current administration. You look at your last 12 months on how you've been taxed. When they fail, you're gonna pay the price. And I'm here to clean this up. As a former executive director to the Red Cross, I know how to triage, I know how to get emergency shelter. This is why I'm committed to sleeping in an RV at MacArthur Park for my first 100 days in office. You have my word. You get me elected, and I'm moving into MacArthur Park in my first 100 days with my RV. Watch me.
Candidate Hernandez. With the passage of housing reform SB 79, how can you assure that new housing is affordable for our most vulnerable residents?
Well, when it comes to any type of development in Council District 1, I have been at the table, at the forefront of fighting to make sure that whenever possible, we have the deepest affordability and the highest number of affordable units in these developments. Now, Executive Directive 1 has created situations like Toland Way in my district, where 17 families and over 40 people were about to be evicted from their rent-stabilized units in the name of building affordable housing that was not even affordable to these families. I stood with community, I stood with the families fighting against the displacement of themselves. And right now, that development is not moving forward. The tenants are in conversation to figure out what is the best solution for them and their families. That's for me where I take where I follow the lead. We have in this district RSO units in Lincoln Heights, in Chinatown, in Highland Park. When there have been policies around development, for example, ED1, I have stood at the forefront to make sure that our most vulnerable community members living in rent-stabilized units are not sacrificed to build the missing middle. And so I put interim control ordinances to protect these rent-stabilized units. So like I said, whenever there's a development that comes up, I will fight for as many and as deeply affordable units as I can. And when our communities are on the chopping block in the name of affordable housing that is not affordable, I will stand with community and figure out other solutions and present other models, such as social housing. That is a model that I want to get implemented in my second term using Measure ULA dollars. That's why we have to protect Measure ULA. And so that's how I'm going to stand up for my community and protect affordable housing.
Thank you. Candidate Grande.
I mean, what the heck is even affordable these days? You know, my oldest son, graduated college, got married, moved away. Actually, I think I saw him in the crowd here. Anyway, So my wife and I decided to downsize. We have our other 2 kids with us. For me to stay in my own neighborhood in Highland Park, from Highland Park to Highland Park, it took us 6 months. 6 months. Now, I'm in a market rate unit, but for 2 working professionals in their 40s with established careers, what the hell? Seriously. So yeah, I'm gonna put my foot down on affordability, because the reality is that I don't have to experience it to know it's happening. I know it's happening, but I do have firsthand experience of what it's like to have to want to stay in the neighborhood where I grew up. Now, I think that when it comes to ED1, I believe that if we're gonna go ahead and build, we have to make sure that we have those same neighbors who have moved out come back in at the same rate that they moved out. Now, that's something that I'm gonna fight for, because if we're gonna make a benefit and create more units in the space there, well, naturally, you're gonna be able to make more money off of the extra units, but we're gonna make sure that there are protections there, that those folks do not get displaced. My grandmother, the last 5 years of her life, was displaced twice out of Highland Park, where she spent 50 years. And she spent her last months in Inglewood away from us in unpacked boxes. This is personal for me. This is personal for me because I've experienced it, and this is personal for me because my community members, my neighbors, my family members still are here, so I stand firm on the ground that I will absolutely stand for affordable housing.
Well, the original question was about SB 79, and this is a policy that came out of Sacramento where they're building developments and housing near transit stations or transit centers. So for instance, Heritage Square, which is near where I live, that they're gonna build housing there, develop housing, but they always say affordable, but affordable is not affordable. It should be low income housing. So why are we providing subsidies and making it easier for developers to build? And why are we saying that it's okay not to provide parking? The reality is that development projects, people still, this is a car-dependent city. Now, I am a big supporter of public transportation. I take the train, I take bus 81, I walk, I do all of those things. But at the same time, I still have a car. So if we're giving special credits and special opportunities for developers to build near a transit station, they should still provide the opportunity for someone to have their car there, because people are not going to be just taking the bus and just taking a train. And we have to make sure that it's low-income housing, not affordable housing. Affordable is not affordable.
Candidate Calanche.
Thank you. So in order to have affordable housing, we have to approve housing development. So one of the important things that I will do is make sure that I'm walking through these proposed developments, bringing the entitlement process, being part of the entitlement process, because that's when projects fall apart. When you have to go to different departments, you have to get different clearances. So we need to have a smoother development process by ensuring that the entitlement process works. I'm trying to build an ADU, it took me 3 years. The city wants more housing, I'm building an ADU, they made it so difficult for me. So it's really important that we have development. We have not had any development in CD1 in the last 3 years. So it's important that we work to include developers, mom and pop, people that want to develop. I've seen some great development in Highland Park where they added units to a back of a big lot, and that's a really amazing way to increase the amount of affordable housing. So I would do that. The other thing that concerns me is that Trump is trying to prevent mixed status families from living in public housing. I grew up in the Ramona Gardens community, and that was a big issue the last Trump administration. So we have to ensure that our public housing is available for mixed status family, because you could have a mom that's undocumented, but all the kids were born here. So we have to ensure that we fight Trump on this issue.
Hernandez. CD1 has lost thousands of long-term Latino residents due to rising rents, cost of living pressures. If elected and re-elected, what tools will you use to keep working-class families and small community-based businesses from displacement? And what is your timeline for implementing that?
Great, so for a small business, Part of the resiliency grant that we put out, the $400,000, was to make sure that we could help pay some of the debt that they had to prevent their displacement. Number one, which is already happening. Number two, in my second term, I am already beginning to bring our state legislators together because the state governs the policies and tenant protections for our small businesses. They also govern and regulate whether we can put rent caps on business and retail space. So I'm bringing those stakeholders together to see if we can launch a pilot for the city of Los Angeles to begin to establish small business tenant protections and rent caps so that we can prevent them from being displaced when it comes time to renegotiate the lease. Can you repeat the question again, please?
Sure. If elected, what tools will you use to keep working class families and small community-based businesses from displacement, and what is your timeline?
Great. The other piece around preserving our communities from being displaced is making sure that we can prevent them from being evicted. That is supporting them to make sure they don't fall into the eviction to homelessness pipeline. We're already putting rental assistance money there that's already going out. I have a tenant team that works with our tenants that makes sure that they're not getting evicted or harassed by our landlords. I was one of the leaders of the city to establish anti-tenant harassment policies so community members don't self-evict, so that there's standards and protections for them. Also, I put interim control ordinances, which is to like a protection around zoning that protects rent stabilized units that we did to protect against ED1 development. We're making the investments and we're making the changes.
Great. Candidate Calanche, same question.
Okay. So to ensure that families and businesses are not displaced, some of the things that I will do as a council member is create a business incubator program. There's a lot of businesses that need like a commissary, that need a place to cook food. And some of these are the street vendors, and we need to make sure that we create an incubator program so that they can then open up a brick and mortar and be able to establish a business in our community. I want to make sure that I work with the landlords that own these buildings to get them to understand that we need to keep these businesses here. We can't just make them the bad guys because a lot of them have mortgages that they're trying to pay as well. So I want to work with them to ensure that we can partner to keep these businesses open and in their businesses. But more importantly, the owner of the Guarachito right here on Broadway told me, I'm losing business because I have a homeless guy that's hitting people as they're coming to my business. So we have to ensure that we're addressing the homelessness issue, but that we're addressing the safety in our business corridors. Because you don't want to go to a business if you're not feeling safe. So I want to make sure the lights are on, that the businesses, the streets are safe, the trees are trimmed, to make sure that our business corridors thrive. And I want to put lights, I know this is kind of trite, but put lights and trees and make it more friendly.
Candidate Robledo.
In terms of small businesses, I do think we could, as also like, I have a rent control building. I think also in terms of businesses, we should have rent control corridors, because what happens is some of these small businesses have a lease, and then when it's up after 10 years, then they're doubling and tripling the price. So we need a rent control for the small businesses, and also provide any kind of low income assistance loans, so that they want to be able to buy the building, they could buy the building. I also feel it's important to provide all, like what she said, security, whatever, street lighting, whatever we need, so that the businesses are successful and that they don't fall apart and that they don't lose their business. So we need to provide the technical assistance and the availability for them to succeed. In terms of low-income residents, we also have to make sure we can do an ordinance that stops corporations from buying buildings, or stop corporations from buying apartment houses, so that they don't double or triple or quadruple the price, and they are illegally forcing low-income residents out. So we have to make sure that we're on top of that we provide the availability and laws to protect low-income individuals and people that have been residents in an apartment for a long time.
And the question is around keeping residents here, right?
And small business.
And small businesses. Okay. Well, all those things are nice, but why do people leave? There's no money. There's no opportunity, right? That's people can't afford to stay where they grew up. I just shared that with you. Now, when I'm talking about supporting small businesses, folks, I invite you all to go to my website tonight, Go Grande for CD1, and look at my tab. I have an entire tab called CD1 Open for Business. This isn't high level for me. I break it down into detail. An actual actionable plan on what to do to support our small businesses. Now, also, listen, supply and demand. I was talking to a bunch of kids the other days. What were those little ugly little things people were hanging from their bags? Those little boo-boos. Supply was low, so demand was high, right? It's the same thing with housing. We don't have enough housing, so what ends up happening is that landlords jack up the prices to go to the highest bidder. That is the reality of it. It's simple economics. Now, you talk about rental assistance. We gotta have that year round too. But look, if anyone here's owned a business, you understand. It's not just because you own a business doesn't make you wealthy. You have your permits, you have your insurances, you have what you have to pay. We have to support landlords too. The American dream here is for people to come here, work hard, buy your home, and maybe leave a little something for your kids, right? But once they cross over into homeowners, they become the evil landlord now. What's going on there? We need to make sure that we also support mom and pop businesses and landlords also, and not just squeeze them, but support them as well.
Can you repeat the question?
If elected, what tools would you use to keep working class families and small community-based businesses from displacement, and what is your timeline for implementing this?
So people move when they're not safe, when all they do is find trash and chaos around them. So the first thing is we gotta bring up more officers. We need to get back to the footbeat. We need to make sure, you can boo it all you want, but when you call 911, I know that I want a police officer or a firefighter to show up. And so what we need to be able to do is also make sure that these business groups that we have chambers, we have business improvement districts that are dying, and they're dying purposely because we have no support from the current council member. That is why there was 10 people that signed up to run. 4 made it because of the process. But for a first-time council member, all you gotta ask yourself is, how was your life and quality of life 4 years ago? Compare it to the last 4 years. And again, I'm not a fan of the previous 2 other administrations, but we have never been in this type of chaos. I mean, in every single area, every single neighborhood. I'll tell you this, we've always admired you all up here in Northeast from the South, because you've had the last 3 council members come out of here. So you had people that cared and at least kept your areas clean and safe. But when Highland Park, when Lincoln Heights started to call me, when Mount Washington showed me the roads and the staircases that they haven't had worked on for 20 years, I said, wow. And the part where you said, why are Latinos being ran out? Because the DSA has a champion running this council office. That's why our Latinos have been displaced.
Come to order, please. Thank you. We'll start with candidate Calanche on this one. Calanche, excuse me. Our communities prize our gardens and our green hillsides, yet the state and insurance industry are attempting to impose Zone 0 in high fire areas, including a significant area in Northeast LA. Zone 0 means clearing away all greenery near your home, including all trees and bushes. What is your plan for protecting high fire risk zones while preserving and protecting our important green space?
I am not in favor of Zone 0. I think it will create a asphalt jungle up in the hills. So it's really important that we turn to like our roots, our indigenous roots, what's indigenous to California, planting the type of vegetation, of trees, of oaks that are fire resistant, that are help prevent fires. So we need the city to invest in that type of work versus having people get rid of their trees and gardens. So it's not a solution that I would support. I would support investing in getting rebate programs to get Like, just like we have a rebate program to remove your grass, we can have a rebate program to allow people to plant drought tolerant that also prevents fires, and also the oaks that are native to California that will prevent fires. So I'm against Zone Zero. I think it would remove the beauty of, even like if you're walking Mount Washington, it's just like you feel like you're in a different place in the city. So I would make sure that we protect our green spaces and come up with alternatives to ensure that we don't have communities at risk of fire.
Thank you. Senator Claros, same question.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. What is it with the state and insurance industry trying to impose Zone Zero? What is your plan for protecting high fire risk zones while preserving and protecting our important green space?
So I represented the Red Cross for 4 years as executive director in the Los Angeles region. I know about wildfires, I know about home fires. Make sure that you're changing your home smoke alarms and that we're not just taking them down, as a friendly reminder. But emergency preparedness coalitions was the way to go through the Red Cross, because something that we taught our neighborhoods when I was at the Red Cross was that no one is coming during a natural disaster for 7 to 14 days. You're gonna be on your own. And so making sure that you have a plan, that the relationships are there, and that you know how to work your plan is very important. If you're meeting your local representatives and their staff for the first time during a crisis, the way that a lot of us have, it's too late. And so that's why a disaster response training, obviously bringing in FEMA and CERT to do it on the front end. These preparedness coalitions are going to be very important, and making sure that experience matters. When the wildfires hit on the west side, did you know that we in CD1, the most vulnerable, put together our resources that we had from the ice raids and from everything else into Lincoln Heights, into a distribution center, and we went to the west side, because then it was them then, one day it's gonna be us. And that's why we need those relationships from the west to the east, from the east to the west, north and south. We need to be able to set up triage, command posts, and really take care of issues hands-on and not just throw it off to third parties. Thank you.
Senator Robledo.
Zone Zero just doesn't make sense. It's illogical and not even practical. So I don't support it. I live in a fire zone. 3 years ago, the state decided I was going to be in a fire zone. I'm in between Montecito Heights and Mount Washington. My insurance company dropped me. I got a new insurance. The next year, that insurance company dropped me. So now we're left with the California Fair Plan. And what they're doing is they're already giving, we have a grace period for 3 years with Zone Zero. And this whole thing about cutting the trees that are near your house, it just doesn't make sense. What we saw during the fires is that a lot of the fires started through the vents. And what we need to do is something called hardening, which is they were put screens in the vents. That they found that even some of the trees protected the homes from the fire. So as long as they're not dry, as long as they're healthy, then they are kind of a protection barrier. So this whole concept is illogical, and it's a capitalist plot. It's a conspiracy, I say. The insurance companies to make you spend more money. And I do think we need to support this indigenous plans, but cutting down our trees is just not acceptable and not a way to resolve the issue. So I do not support Zone Zero. I think we have a 3-year grace period. I think we continue to fight the good fight and try to go still against it and modify it.
So the insurance companies are proposing this, right? Does anyone in California trust insurance companies? Yeah, they just took the payment out of my bill today, so I'm really not trusting them. Listen, we're a very proud district. We have beautiful landscape. Take all the trees away from Highland Park and Mount Washington, what do we got? We got a concrete jungle. Look at all the different places. I've been in Lincoln Heights, I've been in MacArthur Park, I've been talking to these folks, and they want that same pride there. They want beautification. So I'm sorry, I'm completely opposed to it. We need to plant more trees, we need to do more of that greenery. Now, what we need to do also, we need to bring more of that there. We need to bring pride throughout our entire district. Now, I do agree that we can have incentives for fire retardant plants around homes. Now, cleaning shrubs is something we need to do, and you shouldn't wait months for a city to come out and do it. We need to incentivize local teams. Like I'm saying, I'm talking about boosting local economy. If there's gardeners or people within our community, I believe that we can pay those guys. They'll get it done in a weekend, in a few hours. I'm not about hiring local. Now, the thing is, we're not gonna have, I'm sorry, you vote me in, we're not gonna have another Palisades happen here. Hell no. Now, we're gonna create something. We're gonna create fire captains. We're gonna create emergency exit roads. I've already been talking with LA City Fire on where to have fire extinguishers placed throughout key areas, throughout Mount Washington, Montecito Heights, and throughout the hills, because we have to protect the character, and in the case of emergency, when emergency lines go down, we have to have an action plan ready to go to make sure that we save life and property and keep it to a minimum.
Thank you. CD1 is home to various hillside communities and high fire severity zones. Every time I go up there and I talk with folks, they say their number one concern is, are we the next Palisades? Are we the next Paradise? What are we doing to prepare? And so I've taken this very seriously. I've invested CD1 discretionary funds in CERT training to train up our neighborhoods, to train up our hillsides on emergency response and preparedness. I have invested CD1 discretionary funds in My Safe LA. My Safe LA helps build fire councils in neighborhoods so that the neighborhoods can come together, learn and build their evacuation plan, as was talked about, as well as doing door knocking to check the fire alarms within people's homes. I've done drive-alongs of our hillside neighborhoods with hillside constituents, also with our fire department, because I wanted to know what it felt like to try to get a fire truck up these hills, and I can tell you that we had to stop and door knock so that people could move their cars so that we can get the fire truck through. When I saw that, I invested in implementing more red flag signs and red flag days and red curbs in those neighborhoods so that fire trucks can make it up the hill. We don't want these communities, when it comes to Zone 0, it was born out of the Paradise Fire, these other fires that we saw. And I believe that we do need to work on Zone 0. I've been working with my community to make sure that we can amend Zone 0 so that they can get the requirements clear so that they know what to do. I've also been working with the California Board of Forestry and Fire Protection to make sure that they know what my community wants. April 23rd, the board is having a meeting where they're going to release their regulations. You can give public comment at that meeting on Zone 0, so tap in.
Awesome! Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Just to keep everybody cognizant of the time, we have we're going to do 2 more questions, and then we're going to give each of you a minute for closing remarks. We'll start with candidate Claros for this question. Northeast LA is home to some of the most diverse ecosystems in all of LA, including but not limited to Depps Park, Flat Top, Moon Canyon, and Heidelberg Park, and historic places like Lincoln Park and Carlin G. Smith Park. Currently, many of our historic green spaces and parks are run down and in disrepair without sufficient rangers, staff, and without local community advisory boards. What would you do to improve the status of open spaces and parks, and what sort of local initiatives and policy changes would you pursue to ensure parks and green spaces are preserved?
I would vote for Raul Claros. I would go to raulclaros.com. I would donate $5 today and make sure that we get new leadership, because everything that you just described in the question has happened in the last 4 years. I know things haven't been great. Again, we've been failed in the southern portion of the district for 3 administrations now. But never have we seen the parks up here northeast, to how Nelson said, the beautiful greenery. I walk around Solano Canyon and Elysian Park on a daily basis, right? Those are where those 5,000 steps come in. And we've been talking, we've been going through tunnels. We're finding people that are living in sewers these days, okay? So this is where we need to make sure that we take back our parks, because when I grew up, I was a park rat. Thanks to LA Best after school programs and thanks to Rec and Park baseball, I got a baseball scholarship to the University of Upper Iowa. Then I played Division II ball at Cal State Dominguez Hills. But it all started because of Rec and Parks. It all started because of quality after school programs. We don't have that anymore. I have a 10-year-old little girl right now that can't go out to the neighboring park on her own, on her bike, and come back home. I mean, that would be just crazy. So if I can't trust my little girl to do that, how am I gonna ask you all to go to our parks? I wanna take back our parks, and the way that we do that is by replacing the negative with a positive. We have to saturate our programs at our parks. That's what we have to do.
Candidate Robledo, same thing.
As I said before, the park was a very important part of my childhood, and it should be accessible, clean, and safe for communities, for everyone, no matter what age. I do notice that recently the park advisory boards don't exist anymore at the parks, and that's where you have representation from communities at the park so that we can have a liaison with the city council office to let us know what are the areas of concern. And also park rangers are an important part of keeping safe. I do support funding so that we can have park rangers, even if it's part-time at a variety of different parks, because that really makes a difference in terms of safety, and that we make sure there's no encampments at the parks. When I worked in CD1, when I was approached about that there was a desire for development up at Flat Top, I actually went to the councilman and said, look, can we do a motion so that there is no development of Flat Top? And he agreed. So once we did that, then developers and people that wanted to come and develop Flat Top was stopped. So I think it's an open space is a wonderful part of and the beauty of CD1. We have to preserve it, promote it, but I do think we have to bring back the Park Advisory Board and bring back our park rangers. And I also noticed that Carly G. Smith, it's not accessible, so we have to invest in all the parks to make sure they're disability accessible so that everybody has access to them.
Candidate Hernandez.
Thank you. Protecting green spaces, creating more green spaces, and maintaining more green spaces have been a priority for me as a council member in this district that is very park poor and has very limited access to green space. I mean, the northern side is much different than the southern portion of our district. MacArthur Park is the front yard and backyard to many communities. Flat Top here in this community is the front yard and backyard to many people. And when that property was up for development, I made sure that I brought the San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians to the table as the original caretakers of that land to speak with the developer to say, this is what we want to see, so that they could also fight for their land. I have invested in our community gardens. I've invested in Solano Canyon Community Garden, Highland Park Community Garden, to make sure that we can preserve these green spaces that exist in our communities. I have been a champion for fighting for our Rec and Parks Department. In my second year in office, when they were facing over 60 staff cuts, I fought to preserve those. In the last year, in the $1 billion deficit, many positions within Rec and Parks were on the chopping block. And usually it's Rec and Parks, Cultural Affairs, Animal Services that are always on the chopping block. And so I've been a champion for those things, but particularly for Rec and Parks, because I understand that this is diversion, this is prevention. These are the backyards and front yards to our community members, and we need to make sure that they're accessible, that everybody's welcome, and I will continue to make that fight. And it's one of the reasons why I've taken on this David versus Goliath fight against Frank McCourt, who wants to take green space from our communities. I take on those fights because we have to preserve all green space, including State Historic Park.
Grande.
Well, first we gotta clean the parks. Yeah, so let's start there. So, all right. I'll tell you what, first day in office, I'm gonna drain MacArthur Park and we're gonna clean that place. Who knows what we'll find under there. But we gotta clean it up. We gotta get help to those people on the streets, those who are living on there. Like I said, we're gonna do this with dignity. Now, I'm a fan of pocket parks. Pocket parks are great. We find nice small locations. I stumbled across one the other day. Does anyone know Culebra Park down here? You're walking down, well, I know not everyone's from in district in here, but we know, look, one thing I've learned being on this campaign trail is that people are committed to their communities. When you want to create something like a volunteer squad to help our community members, let's start Little League again. Girls flag football's taking off. Let's start the program in our parks. I bet you, if I ask around the room here, we will have a handful of people who are going to volunteer ready to do that. It's not just about what's in the budget, but there are a lot of good people in our community who are ready and willing to volunteer their time to put back in the community what the community gave me. Listen, I'm one of these kids who benefited from that. You know, I played on the Mets, you know, when I was a kid, on T-ball, you know, small brag, but it's the things that, you know, it gives you that confidence. We need to open this stuff up again, folks. But honestly, listen, there's all these talks about it. We have parks, but we got to start by just cleaning them up.
Candidate Calanche.
I live next to Debs Park, and I think it's a beautiful park, but it's not a safe park right now. So parks are really important. But I want to say that I've been doing this work for 30 years, not 3 years, or 3.5 years. I've been fighting for our community. I've been fighting for our community. I started off trying to save Hazard Park. When kids couldn't go to Hazard Park, at 19, I started a girls' sports program because there was no programs for girls. I did it. I wasn't a city employee. I just did it because my community needed it. I served on the Debs Park Advisory Board that helped to build the Audubon Center. I did that as a community member. I wasn't the council member getting paid $250,000 to do this job. I did it. I have been doing this work for 30 years. I have the experience to do this work. And I've done it well. I built an organization at the Hazard Park Armory. I took a vacant military building that was sitting there, owned by Rec and Parks. I raised $4 million to renovate it. You could do that to the Bridewell Armory. You could do that. It's not in CD1, but it serves Highland Park residents. I renovated it. I built programs for youth. I wasn't the council member. I did it myself because I was committed to the community. As a council member, I could do that and more.
Thank you, candidates. Our Spanish language translator needed to take off, so we are going to close. We'll give you each 1 minute of closing remarks. We're going to do this alphabetically, just to be as fair as the alphabet will allow. Candidate Calanche.
Can we do a minute Spanish? I think we all speak Spanish.
Yeah.
They're still here, they just have to wrap up. They're still here. They have to go.
That's okay.
So, Candidate Calanche, 1 minute. Oh.
I love my community, and as I mentioned, I've been working really hard as a community resident to help kids. I was part of the first GRID program. I helped to develop the GRID program. I had gang interventionists that worked for me. I ran a book club for gang members to get out of the gang. I did that work. As I mentioned, I've developed public-private partnerships to build spaces for community. I started building a park in Ramona Gardens because kids were living next to a 12-lane freeway. That's an injustice. I got millions of dollars to start that project, to create a green buffer in the Ramona Gardens Natural Park. I am a doer. I have the experience. 30 plus years of doing this community work, sitting on commissions, being appointed by mayors to get work done. Is that it? Thank you. I would love your support. Thank you.
Claros, 1 minute.
Show of hands, how many of you live in the district? Okay, how many of you own a business in the district? Okay, this is a good, poll right here because you know the realities. There's a lot of people that are not here from the district. I was born and raised in this district. I'm raising a child in this district. And let me tell you that the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that all of our parks are safe and clean for everyone. This is why I want to bring back the park rangers, but armed, over in MacArthur Park. This is why they're not there. They can't get there because they don't have the support to even be armed. But we need to take back our parks. We need to make sure that our renters, that our seniors, our most vulnerable have assistance. And this is why I'm going to build a one-stop shop to be able to get you these real-life assistance instead of wasting our discretionary funds. This is why I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Candidate Grande. Candidate Grande.
All right, so I got a minute and a half, cool.
No.
All right. Folks, I'm from here, born and raised here, Avenue 56, went to all the local schools. I did my first communion in Cypress Park over at Divine Savior. Okay? Give me 10 seconds back, please. Anyhow, listen folks, I've had every lived experience here. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I have kids here, I have a daughter who goes to school here, I run a business here. Been here in my teens, my 20s, my 30s, my 40s. I know what it's like to not pay yourself, so you pay your employees. I know what it's like to sit around the table discussing with your wife, how are you gonna pay your bills? Listen, these lived experiences are very real, and it feel you, and these are the struggles that families face every day. So I want you to know that you have somebody here who understands you. And for stepping up for our immigrant community, like I said with the Siren Initiative that I did before, both the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Secretary's Office commented on me and my interviews, and they said that this guy is pressing against the law. People ask me, are you scared? I said, no, I'm more pissed off than scared because I'm standing 10 feet, 10 toes on the ground for my community, regardless of immigration status. So thank you, folks.
Hernandez.
Thank you. I was born and raised in Council District 1 and have lived in Highland Park my entire life. I still live here. I've spent my entire career advocating for my communities and fighting for justice for our most vulnerable community members, our seniors, our young people, immigrants, working families. I've spent my time as a council member fighting to make sure we beef up the public safety ecosystem so that we have more teams responding to prevent harm and violence and to support our community members in mental health or behavioral crises. I've been doing the work and fighting to make sure that you can feel the impact of your tax dollars outside of your home, trimming our trees, fixing our street lights, and uplifting the quality of life for our community members. I also will continue to be at the forefront of the immigration fight for this city. I was doxxed last year because of my fight for my communities, but I will always put my communities first. I will always put people over profit. I will always make sure that my communities have a voice at the table and that they're not just on the menu, and that there is clear and strict accountability to all the dollars that you all pay for the city budget. Thank you.
I am the daughter of immigrants, like many of you are. And I didn't have very many things growing up. But for me, the park was important. It's the first time I went to my Easter egg hunt. When I went to the library, it was the only place that was quiet so that I could study. And I learned how to swim at a pool. And everybody deserves to have clean and safe, walkable communities. People do not feel safe right now in Council District 1. Get rid of the Los Angeles Homeless Authority. Stop wasting taxpayer money. Have effective solutions for the homeless. Provide the mental health services, the drug addiction, and the alcohol addiction. And provide financial assistance to those families that are on the brink of leaving their homes. Let's have sensitive care and effective care. I have worked in 3 council offices, in the city hall and in the field. I know how to get things done. I know it's important to have constituent services matter. Thank you for the consideration.
Thank you all so much. Thank you to our candidates for being here, the audience. I think we were all well behaved this evening, so we really appreciate it. And get out to vote. Thank you so much.